everybody. I'm just getting some stuff set up. Wait for a few people to get in if they can. So just kind of hang in there a minute. I just want to make sure it's going live. There we go. All right. All right, everybody, welcome. Good morning. I'm Jason with JAR Custom Designs. Today I'm going to be going over some questions that people had. Hopefully give answers and help out with some stuff with RD Works. You go over how to measure stuff, how to use absolute coordinates, use machine coordinates. I'm not going to mess with anchor points because it's not necessary, I don't think, on this particular instance. Now, shoot, come on now. I'm just trying to get live chat up. Bear with me a minute. And of course it's not working again. At any rate. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take you into RD Works, and you can see kind of what's going on here. What I did is I did this graphic in CorelDRAW, and I used the macro settings to put it where I want it. Sorry. Bear with me, so I was trying to. Alright, so anyways, I was just trying to get everything situated here. But, yeah. So anyways, I have it brought into RD Works, and first thing I want to go over is the measuring. The measuring's kind of already done for you. The length of this, it has your measurement down here, 225.359. But say you want to do a measurement from the gun. The actual measurement of the gun is, let's just say, 1168. Okay, and you get that by this box down here. So what you do first, you click on the ruler at the top. Alright, then let's see, we find a point we want to start at, click it, and then drag over and click it again. That locks in your number. So 1158.113 millimeters is how long this image is. So now you know the length of it. You can also find the width of it. You can find the height of it. Let's see, right there. So that's 288.491. Say you want to get a tip to, from one tip to the opposite tip, it'll measure that as well. So that's how your measuring works, so you can find out how long things are. But if you just go ahead and highlight the whole thing like that, come down here, it tells you exactly, spot on, edge to edge, how long the object is. Alright, now it's going to tell you that right here as well. It says one array object size X, which is left to right, is 1156, and Y, which is top to bottom, is 284.734. So if you just highlight the whole item, it'll show up as the measurements to which it is in the software, from the furthest most points, top and bottom, left and right. If you're just wanting to measure one particular item, say I want to know how long the scope is. My cut lines are red, so I'll go from cut line, this is just rough, to cut line is 307.672, and again it shows up down here. So that's how you use the measuring feature in ArtieWorks. I've never used it that much, aside from just kind of learning how it works, but it's pretty simple. Like I said, if you're just trying to get the size of the whole object, just highlight it. It's the quickest. But if you're trying to get a specific piece of that image, then you want to use the ruler and actually draw it out, whichever direction you want it to length. Alright, so with that being said, what I want to go over next is how to nest. And basically nesting is creating multiple images, and you're trying to get them in there as tight as you can to fit as many as you can in an area. And ArtieWorks will do that for you. So what you want to do is you have to highlight the item first. Go to Tools, go to Nesting. Okay, it's going to bring up this screen. Now, I want 4 of them. Okay, so I do 4, and the way it's currently set up and the size and shape, it will only let me do 3. So I'll do 3 rows. So I'll be able to do 3 at a time. So now you have a safety distance, which basically puts a gap between each object to give you a little buffer for caution if you need it. It probably works more so on acrylic, because you don't want to try to cut lines right on each other on acrylic, because you might melt some stray plastic and it gets stuck somewhere it shouldn't be. But here I got it just for demo. I got it set for 0.50, which is half a millimeter from edge to edge, or from the closest point to the next object. Alright, and if I remove that and I go with 0 and I go 4, again it's not going to let me do 4. So I go back down to 3. I still got that gap. Now to close that gap, you have to hit your full frame. Let's see. Sorry. Get back into it. Alright, so I got to open nesting back up. But again, or let's say you don't have, well, right now it's reset, so Get out of it. Froze up there for a second. When you're, well, already work shut down on me. Awesome. So I'll go back in here. I'll open up ArtieWorks again. And as you can see, none of my settings were saved, which is fun. Let's do 50. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to scale this down so it's not such a pain and a little bit more realistic for what we're doing. So again, you go up to Tools, Nesting, and you don't want any row spacing, so now you go 5. You want 5 of them. Now when you come back in and look at it, it's not showing a difference, but it should. Oh, I know why. There we go. I had to calibrate them so it knows the distance. Now, if I go into it, you see how they kind of overlap. So if I go back and do 0.5, AutoCal, see, it sets my distance. It spaces them apart. So every time you make this, adjust your safety distance, and then now I want it 5 millimeters apart. So now AutoCal, now it spaces me out 5 millimeters. So that way you can control your spacing for whatever your comfort level is for doing this. Usually I don't do any spacing. I usually let it do its own thing. But again, it depends on acrylic. I will set a spacing just to keep the molten plastic from the line next to it that's already been cut being stuck back to the piece that I just cut, which can happen. So that's how you set up your view, and say I want 2 columns, or whoops, or 2 columns. So now it gives me 5 rows with 2 columns, and then you could go up to say 8. Well, okay, 8 don't fit, so let's go back down to 7. Now 7 fits, but obviously you don't want to use the full extent of your bed or your frame, so we'll go down to 6. Alright, so this will take up the majority of the bed. Now say you are doing something smaller and you don't want to use the whole bed. So right now mine's a 3655, so it's roughly 1400 by 900. So if I want it to be 300 by 300, see how it shrinks? It shrinks my field down. And then go back to nesting. We'll see what it does here. Alright, so it reset itself. It glitched and shut down. But anyway, so when you come in here, you always want to do an AutoCal, so it's going to automatically calibrate your distances based on your safety distance here. You can adjust your frame size by just typing in a number, which is not going to let me do it. And the reason it's not going to let me do it is because in the machine settings, actually it did let me do it this time, but see how the box is now 300 millimeters by 300 millimeters? So that overrides your bed size and puts in whatever size that you want. That way you're not using the whole bed when it's not necessary. Alright, so now we're back to normal. So now when we go back to our screen, we got all of our stuff here. Okay, but I don't want to do all that, so I'm going to just Control Z will take you undo what you've done. So if you get somewhere you're not happy with, and you just hit Control Z and it's done. Alright, so now we'll go into positioning. So right now I'm at current position, and if you look at the bed in the top right, here, let me enlarge that a little bit. So you see the bed in the top right here. Right now it's I think it's like 100 and something by 300 and something. It's just arbitrarily placed on the grid. So my laser head is somewhere up in this area. So now I want my laser to be there because I want it to go out of the way when I'm done. But first, obviously, you have to line everything up, and once you're done with that, so you bring your however you line up your material. I use the gantry alignment tool, which is attached to the gantry, so it makes it perfectly square with the gantry when you're trying to line stuff up. But once you line it up, what you're going to do is you're going to find your point. So it's either top, middle, or right, or top, left, middle, right, or middle, or bottom. If you do it in the top, or if you want to change it, you go up to Configuration System Settings, change your laser head position to wherever you want it. I like it in the top right, and then hit cancel. Now your anchor point is at the top right of your piece. So if you set a board and you want the piece to be in here, then you put your position of origin, which is going to be when you push the origin key on your machine. That's where it's going to start and stop every time. Now, if you want to move that, you go to absolute coordinates. Okay, so now you can actually place the head where you want it. Like if you're using the gantry alignment tool, you can set your head offset from that, and then every time you go back, it'll go back to this position. So that way you're always square with your new pieces. As you put them in and take them out, they'll be squared up. Now, with absolute coordinates, it is going to go absolutely wherever you put it on this table. Whereas current position only means that it's wherever you set it on the machine when you hit that origin button. That's your current position. With absolute coordinates, it's based on the machine. You have the anchor point, which is down here, and you have your reset point is in the upper right. Now, with that, it knows where it is on the table between the anchor point and your reset position. Now, this is good for doing jigs. Okay, so if you wanted to do, let's say we wanted to do, I'm going to go ahead and do nesting. I want to do three rows, okay? Oops. Nesting, 3 rows, calibrate. Why ain't it showing up? Calibrate, 3, and their safe distance is 5 millimeters. Bear with me. It's not saving the settings. So 3, AutoCal, actual array. There we go. So when you're done doing your adjustments, and nesting, to get it to go to your thing, I forgot you have to hit the actual array. Now you can do a virtual array, and it's still going to do the same thing. But either way, I like to hit actual array, because just in case I don't know all the ins and outs, so I hit actual array because that's what I want. Alright, so now this is going to be my template. Let's say you cut out a bunch of these in blanks, and then you want to write something in the blank areas on these, right? So when you write something in the blank area on these, once you cut out the outer perimeter, you make a pocket basically. So you can use like an eighth inch MDF and a 1/4 inch MDF, and you'll do your cutout on the 1/8 inch, which you would do the contour cuts of these. So you wouldn't do any of the scanning up here. You wouldn't do any of the scanning or anything. You just do the cuts, which would just cut the outlines. All right. So when you set your material inside this, these items will fit right in there. So when you go back and add lettering to them, it's going to go back and it's going to add lettering exactly where it should be every time. But with that being said, when you do this, you set up your jig. You need to make sure that you mark the template with either some coordinates or with a location on the bed. Typically when I make a jig, or not a jig, it's a fixture. When I make a fixture, I'll usually put it down here in the bottom right. Alright, so that way, whether I use my squaring or my bed square, or if I use the blade clamps, I can use those as a stopping point for where I'm placing that item. Now, like I said, you need to make sure you mark your coordinates, because if you don't mark the coordinates and you don't get it back in the exact same spot, when you go to pull this file back up and print, it's not going to be lined up, as you can imagine. So for this, I'm just going to go ahead, I'm just going to go back, because I only want one for this demo. Alright, and we'll place it right there. Alright, so now that that's placed, you got your absolute coordinates, which means it's going to go to this spot. You've already lined up your material, you know where it's at, it's out of the way. This works really good for like if you're doing a lot of repeat work. You can get stuff in and out quickly, because as soon as it's done cutting, the head moves out of the way, so you don't have to worry about moving it, and then you just hit start again once you put your new piece in and go at it. So I'm setting the distance on this, as you can tell in the picture in the top right of your screen. The head's quite a bit away from the lower middle, so it's going to travel quite a bit, but you can put that anywhere, and I'll show you that here in a second. But I'm going to go ahead and I want to download this. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a couple cut marks. Uh-oh. Don't tell me I have a problem with my connection. Alright. So file success. Now if you look at the camera, let me make it larger for you so you can see it. Actually. Alright. So now you're going to see, right now I'm going to go ahead and hit the origin position. That's going to lock in where I want the laser head to stop after every cut. And then like I said, my origin is down in this area. So once I hit start, it's going to go to that area. It's going to do what it's going to do. Okay? I have one thing I got to do. Forgot to change it to cut. And the laser is disarmed right now, so don't worry about it. It ain't gonna fire. The lid's open, the magnet's off. and the chiller's off. So there's 3 things keeping it from firing. But anyways, so now, again, hit start. Now it's going to be a little bit quicker. This is going to do a quick 2 cuts, and it's going to go back to its point of origins. Now it's out of your way. So let's say you want to be closer for quicker removal. So you move your head, hit origin, and hit start. It's going to go back to the exact same spot, do its thing, and move out of your way. Then you put the new piece, take whatever piece out, put another one in, hit start again, and it's going to go on and do its thing where it's supposed to, and then go back. Okay, so that's how how that works. Now, like I said, using my, that's the alignment tool right there that I was talking about, this orange thing on your right monitor, or your right camera. That's the alignment jig. It swings down so you can line up your materials. And this is where you'll use the absolute coordinates. Especially if you're trying to line up a square edge. There's an adapter for this that has a square edge on it. So you can line up 2 corners of the material and for quick access. And this thing doesn't move past 90. So every time you flip it down, it's going to be in the same spot, so you can position your material that way. That comes for like repeated jobs that are bigger, mainly, because try not to have to set up a lot of stuff, and that way once it's done cutting, it'll go back to the position where you had your original marking for the square. So that way it'll square it up, and then it'll jump right back to where it's supposed to be. I can kind of show you that, or I'll attempt to show you that here. So, just slide my fixture. Let me get this out of the way. Slide my fixture over, drop the feet down, and you can either push the material up to it, or you can bump it with the head. Okay, so now we have our jig set up, or our alignment jig set up, and sorry, just 1 second. It's kind of hard to show here. This ain't, it's not going to actually do what I'm trying to explain, because it's set for this, and this is obviously not a jig setup. But the point is once you set everything up, you can have it to where the head will go back to this position for an immediate alignment of the next piece. So when you take it out, put it back in, everything will be lined up where it's supposed to be. And then that's where you set up your absolute coordinates. But again, like I said, you have to, this all has to be set up from the start to finish, and that's not what this video is about. I might do one with just setting that up itself and getting it running, and so you can see it. But this is just to kind of give you an idea what it can do when you use absolute coordinates. So that's one of the other things that you can do there. Just flip these back up out of the way. Good to go. So basically that's just to try to show you what it can do. So when you come in here, and you, like I said, you position anywhere you want, and when you bring up that file, every time you bring up that file, it's gonna know where it's supposed to be. So if your head's up here or down here, or your origin on your last item was, or your anchor point on your last item was in the top right, it don't matter. When you save this file, or when you download it to the machine, excuse me, it's going to know exactly where it needs to be. It's going to go there, every time you go to that file. If you want to change it, you have to come back and change it and re-download it into the system. So what was the other thing? I saw someone just recently put a post about, let's see, we'll go to boss. Alright, where's it at? Well, I saw something in here, but I don't see it anymore. Someone had a question about something. New activity. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm sure I'll come across it at some point. But yeah, the biggest thing is when you're doing this stuff, it's a learning process. I mean, I don't do it that often. As you could probably tell, I'm not real fluent in it, but I do mess with it a little bit. And if anything else, maybe it'll empower your creativity and pique your curiosity and get in there and dig into ArtieWorks a little bit, because it does have a lot of neat features. I know some people swear by Lightburn. I'm not a fan. It has, I mean, it's good for beginners, and if it's something that you start out with, working from the very first time you use it, I can see it's a good thing. But it's quicker and easier for me just to use Corel, throw it into ArtieWorks, and cut it. ArtieWorks for me is just a transportation of data to the laser. So I really don't use it for anything other than that, and to position stuff on the screen like I showed you with the array, or not the array, but the nesting, doing the nesting. It's handy for that. You know, I wish I had a camera. That'd be cool, but it don't. Lightburn does, and that's cool. But for me, it's just a useful idiot, I guess you could say. I don't really need it, but I do to run the machine. But I usually use current position for all my files, unless I'm doing like a production, like I said. Then I'll use the absolute coordinates, where the material's set in a specific spot, and that's it, for repeatability. And I use my bed square and my gantry alignment tool to get everything squared up. That way it's easier to use and set up the actual bed square, because the bed's not always going to be square with the gantry. I don't care what you do. It'll be square at one point in time, but it's usually not that accurate. With my bed square, it's adjustable. It's fully adjustable, so you can use that. Such as, let me show you here. Alright, so here's the bed square, and if you look at the camera on the right, this is how it goes in. It sits down on the bed. It doesn't need to be hooked up to anything here, but typically what I'll do is put a blade on there. It's every 5th blade, and they have to be sitting in the right direction too, so that kind of helps. Take this one. Put it in there. And I missed it. Alright. So with the bed square, it's adjustable up and down. You can even twist it a little bit. It's got a little bit of flex and play with the blades. And then you have thumb screws that go on the bottom to tighten it down. And it also can go all the way up against the far side and sit down on top of the ruler, so it's still flush with the blades. But using that helps square things up. And then when you're doing it, if you, in the corner here, that's basically your start point. So if you get your laser, test fire it and make sure it's hitting that corner, and then you hit your absolute coordinates, that's going to lock in, or you put your absolute coordinates, it's going to lock it in, and that's where it's going to start out every time. Now, as far as how you do that, that's up to you. I showed you a couple ways. Like, let's see, page settings. This is where you adjust your size of your page, your head number. You don't really want to adjust that, mess with it at all, really. But you can also, resize it. You can set the height. You can set it top left, top right, bottom right, bottom left, center. You can move it to the side, to the side, to the front, to the back. So all the different positions that you can put it in relative to wherever you put your squares, or your alignment fixture that you made. This is a quick and easy way to put it in a specific point on the bed and know it's going to be there. Now, let's see. That's pretty cool. That's not what I wanted. Let's see here. So you can adjust your cut optimization, single inner outer, block handle height, order of layers, all that stuff. You can determine where it goes and what it does. Now, trying to find the one. So now your point of reference, I don't want to change that. So we'll leave it center. Then you can flip it. Oops, I gotta highlight it first. Then you can flip it back and forth, upside down, whatever. Then you got your center. Then you got your array. 2, 2. Then you can make new ones there that way instead of going through your nesting. The only difference with nesting is nesting puts it in relation to this corner over here, whereas just using the grid or the array matrix, whatever you want to call it, it just puts it on there, and then you can position it anywhere you want. That way your absolute coordinates still match, and or if you're using current position, your origin matches. So take that away. And then of course you got your estimator, which this is all I had to do, 13 seconds. This here you can use as well to find imperfections. Like, say I want to do is check my scan. I don't want to see my cut lines. So I'll put that as an output, and I'll check my scan. And you can kind of zoom in to see where all that stuff fits. Like here you'll see breaks where the lines overlap, which that was partially intentional when I made this to break up the texture, but it basically blocks out and doesn't engrave certain areas. So it's going to tell you pretty well where the dead spots are going to be in your drawing if you don't join everything before you bring it in here. It's also going to tell you up here, okay, it's going to take 18 minutes to engrave. So that's a rough idea. I wouldn't take it to the bank because it's usually longer or shorter. Yeah, roughly 18, I'd say 18 to 30 minutes start to finish on engraving. And then cutting, I'd say probably add another 5 minutes. So you might be anywhere 30 to 35 minutes for this size. It varies. Depends on your speed and everything, your scan gap and all that stuff. So yeah, and then you can ungroup stuff. You can group stuff right here. So if you want to change, you ungroup it. You go in here. You can get out of that. Go in here and you can move this around, or you can move this around. You know, you can make individual changes as need be. Then when you're done, you can group it back together. Your docking points, this is your docking point thing here. And for some reason I couldn't get it to work. I gotta look more into it. I said I'm not fluent in all of this, but I do have a decent knowledge of how it works. But for this one, I think that's probably enough. Been on here for 30 minutes, kind of going over some things. But yeah. So if you have any more questions, hopefully some of this stuff helped. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, maybe it confused you even more, I don't know. Let me know. I'd love to know. If you like what you see here, please like and share the page. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe and hit the bell, and that way you guys can know when new stuff's coming out. It's not all going to be fancy and everything. It's just going to be pretty much straight to the point. I'd like it to be more interactive. I know, most of you guys are at work and you're not sitting at a computer where you can look at this stuff all day. So if you're watching this after the live session, that's fine. Just leave a question or comment in the comment section, and I'll answer it or address it as soon as I can, or help point you in the right direction, or what have you. But at any rate, I think that's going to be it for this video. Everybody have a good rest of your day. And until next time, we'll catch you later. And as always, laser like a boss.